So this tutorial will be introducing how to set up listeners for views. Expects that you know how to at least create a new project and add in certain widgets like buttons and stuff like that and change around to a linear layout and relative layout. So with that being said, a view is what you see on the user interface. It is like a button, an edit text, image view, stuff like that. They all descend from the view class. And another subclass from the view is the view group, which would be like your relative layouts, your linear layouts, and stuff like that. So this is why the view group is here, and we would have like a button inside of a linear layout. Or maybe we want 3 buttons in a horizontal fashion. So we would create a linear layout, orientation horizontal, put the 3 buttons in there, put that horizontal linear layout in a relative layout, which also has different views like edit text and buttons. So I have the developer webpage pulled up right here, and you can just go in there and search view, and you'll see that descends from the object class, and pretty much everything you see on your screen descends from this class, about 99% of it. And right here, the known direct subclasses, you can see the view group, and as you can see, the hierarchy goes down according to what it extends. So the view is what you interact with on your user interface. So I have a blank project pretty much set up, nothing in the Java right now, but in the activity main I have just set up 5 buttons, and it's inside of a linear layout, and button 1 has an on-click method declared as an attribute. So there, you must understand, whenever you set up a listener, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, when this button is clicked, do this. So you have a listener for a button or an edit text, many different things. This tutorial will only cover buttons, but we will get into some other types of views on later tutorials. So we're going to set up a listener for a button, and whenever we click the button, the listener is going to fire off and say, okay, perform this code. And so the simplest of ways to do this with a button, I'll go ahead and get this off screen, so we're just focusing on button 1 right now, is there is an attribute called onClick. So whenever you put in your button or edit, whatever you're going to put in, just type in onClick. We'll bring in that attribute, and we're going to put button 1 clicked, and so it's going to underline red, and it's going to say the corresponding method handler button 1 clicked is not found, which is true because we haven't declared it in our Java yet. So what we'll do is we'll come over to our Java and make it our own method for button 1. So we'll put public void button 1 clicked, and that's it. But because we have clicked a button to get to this method, it needs to have a view parameter. If we don't include that view parameter, our app will crash whenever we click the button, because it's required. And if we do this way, what's happening is Android is automatically implementing the onClick listener interface. I should probably go over that real quick. So the interface onClick listener contains the method onClick, and as you can see, there's the view v. So whenever we have a button and we set an onClick listener to it, we're setting an implementation of this interface. And you can see this in action right now. So whenever we declare the onClick in our XML here, Android automatically implements the interface, which is why you're able to just type in the method name that you have declared in your XML with the view v as a parameter. And so I will go ahead and put in a toast. Okay, and I will run this real quick so you can see. Okay, and I'm going to click button 1, and there is our toast. And we did that simply by making a button in our XML using the onClick attribute, declaring that button 1 clicked will be the name of the method in our Java to correspond. That is our listener right there. So, and there it is. There's the method in our Java. And so whenever the button's clicked, it will show this toast. Of course, you can put whatever kind of code in there you want. Okay, so that's one way to set up a listener for a button. We'll look at the second way right now, and we will bring in button 2. Okay, so button 2, we have an ID for it, just called button 2, and that's it. And inside of our Java, we are going to find this button, assign it to a variable, and then assign a listener to that variable. And so whenever the button's clicked, the listener fires off, and it performs whatever action is in that on click. So let's see how that works. So we're going to put button 2 equals button find view by our ID or the ID button 2. Okay, so we have declared it, initialized it, and now we're going to set on click listener, and we're going to give it a new implementation of the view on click listener. And all of that popped up by itself. Sometimes that happens, sometimes not. If it doesn't, just let me see if I can make it happen. New view dot on click listener. So if this is what happens, just click where it's underlined red, hold Alt and hit enter, and then it'll say implement methods, hit enter again. The on click is what we want to implement, hit OK. And there it is, all quickly typed up. Of course, put our semicolon on there because this is a line of code. And inside of our on click, what we're going to do is just copy and paste this toast for demonstration purposes. And we're going to put button 2 clicked. We'll run it. While that's building, just want to go over this again. We have created a button variable called button 2, initialized it with the ID of button 2, which if we go back to our XML, it's the button that we're looking at right now, called button with the text of button 2. And then we took the variable button 2 and we set on click listener a new implementation of the interface view on click listener. And inside of the on click method, this is the action that happens whenever the button will be clicked. And as you can see, there's that view parameter passed in for whenever you need to call some action based off of view click. Okay, so it is running. Let's see if it works. And button 2 clicked and it works. Button 1 clicked, it still works. Perfect. Okay, so button 3, 4, and 5. Yes, we could do all of this right here for each button, but then our onCreate method is going to get pretty long, especially if we have 10 buttons on a page or something like that. Yeah, we could also use the onClick attribute. Personally, I like to use the onClick attribute, but I will show you a third way of doing this that you will commonly see. Okay, so what we are going to do is actually implement the interface for the whole class. And when we do, it's going to underline red, hold Alt, hit enter, implement methods. The onClick method is what we want to implement. And as you can see down here, it has popped up our onClick method. So what we are going to do is find, declare, and initialize the 3 buttons, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. These buttons are set up identical to button 2. They're basically just copy and pasted replicas of it, but just change button 3 as the ID, button 3 text, button 4 as the ID, button 4 text, button 5, button 5. As you can see, so whenever I find them, declare them into these variables, That's what you're seeing right here. And so we have to set up on-click listeners for each of these buttons. So we're going to put button 3.set on-click listener, but we're not going to do a new instance of the interface. We're actually just going to say this will implement the click listener. And it's true because we have our on-click method right here. So we're going to do that as well for button 4, 5, and 6, or 4 and 5. And so basically what we have done right now is we have found our buttons. We have set the click listener to this, which means the listener is in this activity, and this activity has the on-click method. But what's going to happen here whenever, how does this method know if button 3 was clicked, if button 5 was clicked? Well, that's where this view parameter comes in. So what we'll do is we'll set up a switch statement, and we'll have this switch statement make a decision based off what button had called the on-click method. So what we'll do is we'll put switch v.getID, and then we'll have a case r.id.button3 colon, put a break statement in. Can't forget those break statements. One night I was troubleshooting for like 5 hours only to find out I forgot a break statement. But this was, of course, before I found out how to use the logcat. So this is when I was capturing exceptions and errors and putting them in toasts. Must learn to use the logcat. I have a video on that if you have not already checked it out. Very useful. Okay, so whenever we click a button that has this as a listener, so button 3, 4, and 5 has this activity as a listener, it'll call this method. The view that called this method will get passed in right here, and we're going to get the view, and we're going to get the ID from the view. And in this case, in the case of button 3, we're going to show a toast that says button 3 clicked. In this case, we're going to show a button 4 clicked. And in this case, we're just going to say call the method button 5 clicked. And that method doesn't exist yet, which is true. So I will make it right here. And I will paste this in here, and I will put button 5 clicked. The only reason I did that is to show you how you can keep methods lightweight and make it any way you want to. Yeah, I could have definitely put this inside of this instead of calling this, but if I had some action that was going to be 100 lines long, I don't want to make a 100-line block of code inside of a case inside of a switch statement. So what I'll do is I'll just call that 100-line code method here, and it will call the method. So whenever I click button 5, it's going to call button 5 click method, which is right here, which is going to show that toast. So let's just go ahead and play this. Okay, so button 3 clicked, button 4 clicked, and button 5 clicked. So there you have it. Button 1 there's 3 different methods that we have set up listeners for these buttons. Button 1, we declared an on-click attribute and assigned it button 1 clicked, which in our Java, we come down here and we set up a method that has a view parameter passed in. Method 2, with directly setting the on-click listener and implementing it as we code. That kind of can get redundant if you have, like I said, 10 to 15 buttons and you want to set up some different functions for them or something. You don't want to have an onCreate method that's 400 lines long if you can help it. So you'll, in that case, set up implementation of the interface view.onClickListener, and then which will bring in this method, and based on what button you click, it will pass it into it. You'll set up a switch statement, you'll get the ID from it, and then you'll have a case r.id.button3, and you'll have some code to do from there. And if you want to, you can actually call other methods from within it based off of what view clicked it. And you can actually use more than just buttons on here. If you have a layout or view group, or if you have a image view, image button, edit, you have all different types of views. And because the view is the parameter, you can actually use image views and buttons all using this as the listener, and just get the ID based off of what was passed in, if it was the image view or if it was the button, and just set up some code for it. So it's a really versatile way to handle a lot of different views that you want to have a listener in the same class. And there you have it. Button 2 directly implements the interface here, whereas button 3, 4, and 5, we set the click listener to this. Alright. Whoops. I don't know what I just clicked there. Alright, hopefully that kind of clears it up for you. I will provide links to all 3 of these sites right here that I have up, or all these 2 right here. There you go.